A couple years ago, I made this YouTube channel in an effort to try and, become YouTube famous by making video game content. But over the last year and a half, I changed my interests because I wanted to start playing real games with my kids. And, it was really hard. First, it was hard because it was hard for me because I have a really hard time learning how to play new board games and tabletop games. It's so much of a struggle to me that I have to go to YouTube to try and learn how to play those games. But to make matters worse, I had trouble trying to teach my kid, my older son, who's pretty smart, I had trouble trying to teach him how to play games. But I also had trouble trying to teach our younger son how to play games. Our younger son's issue is a little more unique because he's mentally disabled, but my older son, a lot of the issue was based on attention, like trying to get him to focus his attention on something that was not fast paced and that was not edited very quickly. And so, trying to bring my son from video games and YouTube content into tabletop games has been an ongoing struggle. And then I've started noticing that the issue isn't just with my son, but it's kind of with his friends as well. So it occurred to me that maybe a lot of people are having this same trouble of getting their kids to play real games. And so I've broken down some issues. I've put them into 5 different, hopefully, solutions. So if you have kids and you're struggling to get them to play real games with you, hopefully this video will help. And I'll try and make this quick so I don't keep you here for too long. But hopefully by the time you finish this video, you'll have a few ideas that might get you able to teach your kids how to play real games. Okay, I've already addressed the issue, attention spans, and now let me get to some of the solutions. The first one is try to understand what your kids like about video games. And I've mentioned this in another video. If you can figure out what it is your kids like about video games, like what system, what mechanic are they interested in playing, you can set yourself up for success by understanding that. Now, if you have kids that are mostly interested in entertainment and video games are kind of close to each other, and they're also kind of different. The similarity is sort of mechanics and storytelling. Both video games and entertainment have mechanical storytelling elements. The difference between video games and entertainment is kind of an interactive difference. So if you have some kids that are more entertainment and other kids that are more video games, you can bridge the gap with storytelling mechanics, and you can also figure out where the interaction interests lie, okay? But one of the things to take into consideration, with kids that are interested in video games is what kind of games they like. So if you have kids that are doing shooter games, action adventure type games, the board game system that they're going to be more drawn to is a game that allows them to create that dynamic, action-packed moment where they're jumping off a cliff with a car that's on fire and they parachute out of it. If you have kids that are more interested in kind of building up a restaurant in Roblox, you might want to help them find a game that monopolizes and organizes systems to allow them to be the tycoon that they've wished to be. And if you have a kid that's interested in strategy, tactical games, that's probably a kid that's interested in learning all the rules of a system so that they can cheat by using the rules. And if you have a kid that wants to collect all the Pokemon, obviously the best thing to do is find a game that's going to allow them to get all the Pokemon and put them in a cage or something. So understanding the thing that your kid is interested in a video game is really going to help you break down what kind of game mechanic they would be interested in a board game or a tabletop or a card game. Again, entertainment and video games are slightly different, but you'll probably find something in entertainment that also exists that way. If you have a kid that's totally into all the Disney princess movies, that's like a Cinderella story fantasy, and so you'll probably find some sort of narrative game that really piques the interest of that child. Along the point of collection games, though, is a warning. If you have a kid that's very interested in collecting the Pokemon, it can be very easy to just jump into some sort of card collecting game, for example, Pokemon, and the problem might come up where you find you and your family just collecting all the cards and then you don't ever really table the game and play it. So just something to keep aware of. I've had that problem in my own life where I collect all the cards and then we never play the game. So step one, understand your kid's interest, and that will give you a focus. It's going to be a pretty wide focus, actually. So what we want to do is narrow down that focus a little bit, and what we're going to do is jump on to step 2 to give us a little better focus, and that is figure out what you're interested in. You may have the desire or the thought in mind to disregard what your interests are and instead focus on your kid's interests, and that's a mistake. You don't want to do that. You want to find a game system that both you and your kid are interested in, possibly for the same reasons, but also possibly for different reasons. So if you understand your kid's interests, that gives, once again, kind of a wide arc. But if you understand your interests, you'll narrow down that arc in a good way. Because at some point, it's possible you could bring this game to the table, you've learned all the rules, your kid is interested in playing it, and then tragically you find out you're not interested in playing it. So the thing to do is to find a game that fits some interest of yours. It could be setting like sci-fi or fantasy. It could be mechanics like mathematics or collecting or building. It could be specific game loops like leveling up or fighting monsters. And if you figure out what your interest is and what your kid's interest is, and you narrow the window down and you find something that kind of crosses over both your interests, you're more likely to have that optimized moment where you learn all the rules and figure out how to play it. You bring the game to the table, try and get your kid to learn how to play it. You play it with them and you find out that both of you have fun. Okay, and that's the main key, is to try and keep both of you interested in the system. That brings us on to step 3. So at the table here, you'll notice I have a lot of different games. Okay, there are games that are kind of expanded games where, like, there's like miniatures and maps and things. And then there's games that are very simple, kind of like Monopoly, things that are like, it's just the board game and there's not really much more to it. The thing you really want to be looking for, once you know your kid's interest and your interest, you want to be looking for a game system that has some expanded future potential. You don't want to find a game, for example, that you bring to the table on a Friday night, and after an hour and a half of playing, you close it up and your family forgets about it for the whole week. That's not going to get kids to get off of the screen time. And that's not going to get you to get off of the screen time. You want to find a game system that has future potential. And what I mean by that is something where there's some customization options, both in the game and then possibly even outside the game. You want some ongoing story aspects. For example, if you were to get your kids and your family into like some sort of tabletop role-playing game, and during the last session, your kid's character, along with all of your friends, whatever, they come into the room with the dragon, and the dragon has actually already been defeated, but there's another band of adventurers there, and everyone starts drawing weapons and arguing over treasure, but boom, you got to cut it right there. That is an ongoing story that will stick in your kid's mind through the week, and they're going to be trying to figure out, what does my character do? What if the dragon's not dead yet? Or, they're going to be imagining that thing, and they're going to be playing that out. They're going to be living in that story for a little while. That's going to help them to off-put some of their creative and storytelling interests from video games to board games or tabletop games. Other types of future potential, I mentioned customization and story, are external elements. So some of the customization options can be external elements like miniatures or terrain. There's other examples, but I don't need to get too heavily into it. The point is, if you can find something where your kid is going to be doing some kind of crafting work through the week in order to create elements for the game, now they get to participate in the customization aspect with their external elements. And at some point, you might create like a party of characters for your tabletop role-playing game, and your kid has participated in that thing. And that's very helpful for, once again, getting off video games and into more real games. The last aspect of this that is really good for future potential is if you can find a game system that has the ability to create community. So some games are just for 1 or 2 players, and they play the game and it's just for the 2 of them to play. But some games you can find, can accommodate 6 or 7 or 8 players at a game. And if you can find a game system like that has future potential, that has customization, that has, I forgot the other one. That has some external elements. If you can find that, like a tabletop war game or a tabletop role-playing game, or even like some of these boxed versions like this Star Wars Imperial Assault or Zombicide or the Mice and Mystics, like these game systems, they cover all the bases of the things that I'm talking about. And they also have like room for more people at the table. So you can get like 4 or 5 or 6 players going at the table, because if you can create community and you can get your kids' friends or cousins involved, that means they have something they can talk about through the week. That means they have like a shared interest in a game system similar to what they probably have when they're playing Roblox or Fortnite or something else. So if you can create a community element, it's going to have more of an appeal to the kid, especially if the game has a social dynamic to it. So future potential is step 3, okay? Within that, you're going to want to try and find a range of games, because as you can see, the mistakes that I've made, sometimes you pick up a game system and you think, this is exactly what my kid's going to like. We're going to put this to the table. We're going to have a good game. It's going to go great. And it's lopsided. There's something off about it. You end up destroying your kid and you don't even really mean to, or whatever. And the problem is, you just don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, Look around a bit, find a few different game systems that might satisfy the interest of your kids and you, and maybe don't lean into one too heavy before you figure out if it's going to work for you, okay? So find some variable possibilities. Step 4. Oh my goodness, I already forgot everything on step 4. Oh, okay, so you want to keep in mind some ideas about the differences between game systems. So this one's kind of where you start learning how to play the games. It's a little bit of work. So you're going to have to, once you've figured out your kid's interest, your interests, figured out future potential games, you're going to now have to start learning systems. And this one is difficult because you might have to go to YouTube and like watch tutorials on how to play it. You might have to just read through the massive rule books, but hopefully if you've done the previous steps, you're more likely to have a successful game session after learning these rules. If you don't do the previous steps, it's possible you learn a game system and maybe your kid's just not interested in it. So, understanding the differences between open systems and closed systems will also be helpful, because in a closed system, you have a lot of like, here's the rules, and this is what the rules are, and that's how the game works. But in an open system, you have like, well, the rules are approximate, and the rules are make a good story at the table, but kind of do whatever you want. And knowing the difference between those is going to help you to figure out games that are good for you and your kid. Because if you find an open system and you're not interested in playing open system games, it's going to be all work for you. And if your kid is not interested in open system games, it's going to be all work for them. So understanding whether you want more rules-driven games or more kind of open-ended games is very helpful. But you're going to have to learn the game. That is step 4. Learning the games is a lot of work. It's hard. The last and final step, this is actually the hardest. So if I said the other one is hard, this one's actually the hardest. You got to change the spirit. You have to change the spirit of your house. And this takes a lot of work. It's going to take work mostly on your part, because you're going to have to lead by example. And that means you're going to have to play fewer video games. You're going to have to spend more time off your phone. You're going to have to spend time building terrain and painting miniatures. You're going to have to take time to go to the hobby store with your kid. You're going to have to make the hobby store the new video game store. And that's hard to do. You're going to have to transition from the entertainment time where you watch things on YouTube into hobby learning time or game learning time. And you're going to have to learn a lot of different rule systems in order to find the rule system that works for your kids. So step 5 is the most daunting step in all the steps, because, once you've gone through all these other 4 steps, there's still a cultural change that has to happen. And if you're still finding yourself playing, World of Warcraft and Hearthstone or whatever else, it's going to be very difficult for you to tell your kid that they're not allowed to do that thing, because they're going to follow by example. And, but once they see you making the effort to like paint miniatures or figures or build terrain, it's going to be much easier for you to tell them like, hey, it'd be really helpful if you would help support our family game by painting some miniatures. Like a lot of these miniatures, well, some of these my wife painted, but a lot of these miniatures my son and his friends have painted because, they really like coming to the table and playing these games with us. And so I can say, hey, I really need a dragon painted. And my son goes, sure, let me go spray up a dragon for you. So once you start changing the culture of your house from, kind of entertainment or video game focused more into the the hobby focused thing, it will set up the rest of it for success. And if your kids see you, scouring over rule books, trying to learn games, they're going to be more likely to like, oh, I just saw, mom or dad trying to learn this rule set. I want to lean in to help them by playing the rule set they just learned. At least there's the potential for it. Taking the necessary steps and going through, learning their interests, your interests, finding a future potential game, like one that has like a hobbying aspect to it, and then learning the rules, and then changing the dynamic of your household or changing the culture of your household will set you up for success. That's pretty much everything I have for the steps in this video. I have another step in here, but it's not essential. So if you were just looking for the meat, you're welcome to click off now. You got the whole message. God bless you. If you want a little bit more, I'm going to give 5 more tips that might help. And I'll try and go through them quickly. Let's see. You want to maybe find games that are adjacent to video games. And what I mean by that is, for example, Zombicide. Zombicide is a game that is very adjacent to like the Battle Royale games where you jump into a map and you're looking for weapons and you're trying to fight enemies. So if you have a kid that likes the Battle Royale games, Zombicide's a great pick. The Star Wars Imperial Assault and the Mice and Mystics are very similar games that have like a sort of a role-playing aspect to them where you have characters that kind of start off and they're not that great. And then they get better as they go, and they have campaign modes so that it's almost like a little miniature tutorial, because you're going to learn some aspects of the games, but then the game is going to get gradually more complex as time goes on. As you acquire new stuff, you're going to get new mechanics in the game. So if you find games that are adjacent to video games, that will be easier for your kid to move into. Machi Koro, as I think I mentioned, is going to be similar to some of those like restaurant building games. If your kid likes Roblox and like making that that empire, Machi Koro or Catan is going to have those aspects of the game. So video game adjacent games is going to help your kids move into the tabletop gaming. Let's see, a couple more steps. Games with miniatures. So if you find miniatures that you like building and you build those miniatures for the games, we just had a game of Mouse Ritter with my nephew, and because we had these little miniatures made up for the game, it made it very easy for my nephew to just start playing the game, and it was kind of like playing toys, which he likes to do already. So we were just saying, hey, all you got to do is roll dice now to make your toy do a certain thing. You don't have to get miniatures. You can just use action figures or Legos or toys. I don't tend to do that because of my son Riker. I mentioned his mental disability. When he learns how to play something a certain way, we don't generally try and introduce new rules because there's the chance that he either just declines playing with it, or we kill his interest in the thing, or we overcomplicate it. So and none of those are really optimal. But that's what works for us. Customization, I already mentioned, is a big thing. So if you can find games that have customization, for example, Mouse Ritter, the character customization system is very unique and dynamic. Each kid is going to come up with their own unique character with their own like backstory and all that stuff and color of their mouse. Those things are very helpful for kids because kids who are playing video games are often engaging with systems of customization all the time. So the more customization you allow to be in the game or the game system that you find with more customization, it will work well with that kid. Physical interactions over digital ones. I generally tend to lean into games that aren't like tablet, oriented, because there are a lot of games where it's like, okay, you can play this game, but you have to have this app and download it, and I'm like, I'm kind of trying to get away from this thing. There's a double-edged sword to the tablet interaction games. It's gonna feel more video gamey for a kid who's into video games. The downside is it's going to feel more video gamey for a kid who's into video games. It's kind of it's a double-edged sword, and you're going to have to navigate that thing and figure it out. I haven't had too much interaction with the application-based games, but I also, I'm mostly trying to lean into the physical stuff because, I just want to get off the video games. So now I think I'm fully finished. I think I've covered it all. There was 5 steps initially, and then there's some tips. I think I got it all. So if you have a success story, if you've struggled to try and get your kids to play a game, but you've managed to get them to the table playing a game, please post that down in the comments. I would love to read your success story. I would love to learn about what things you've done that have worked for you. because I don't know, maybe I can expand this list or maybe I can learn more. But if you have struggled to get your kids playing the game and you've managed to succeed, please post it down in the comments. Tell me your success stories. Otherwise, if you have a game that you think is interesting or easy for kids to learn, post that down in the comments, because I think a lot of people in these videos go through the comments to try and learn things, and I've been learning so much in the comments. It's been a wonderful blessing. Thank you to everyone who's been posting in the comments, and thank you for everyone who's been subscribing. I'm trying to speak fast and now to end this video. Thank you so much. God bless you. Have a great day, and I hope that your gaming sessions are very successful with your kids. God bless you.